The day I lost my job, my own daughter slammed the door in my face. She didn't ask why, just called me useless. But what she didn't know, I had just become a multimillionaire. I disappeared, then came back with lawyers, keys, and a plan. And I wasn't finished yet. I never thought I'd reach a point in life where peace felt more like a reward than a right. But here I am, 62 years old, sitting by the window of a quiet lakefront house in Minnesota, finally telling my story. Not because I'm looking for pity, but because some truths deserve to be told before they're forgotten. My name is Scarlett Taylor, and for more than 3 decades, I lived a life shaped by sacrifice. I was once a private school teacher in Detroit, respected in my field but quietly burdened. The burden? I carried it gladly. It had a name, Ava. I first saw Ava when I was 28, volunteering in the pediatric wing of a hospital. She was barely a few months old, swaddled in a threadbare blanket, left behind by someone who didn't want her. The nurses told me she had a rare heart condition and was born prematurely. She was so small, I remember thinking she looked more like a bundle of cloth than a baby. But when she opened her eyes and looked at me, those frightened, pleading eyes, I felt something shift inside me. I was already married at the time. My husband, Derek, was a quiet man, career-driven, not cruel but never nurturing. We had no children of our own yet. When I brought up adopting Ava, he looked at me like I'd lost my mind. "You want to raise someone else's problem?" he'd said. I tried to explain it wasn't about pity, it was about doing something that mattered. But he didn't see it that way. When the adoption process began, Derek gave me a choice: return the baby or walk out. So I walked out. I moved to Chicago, bringing nothing but 2 suitcases, a newborn with a weak heart, and a promise I made to myself, that I'd never let Ava feel unwanted again. Raising her wasn't easy. Her early years were full of hospital visits, medications, emergencies. I worked full-time as a private tutor for elite families, often taking night jobs too, grading papers, writing freelance content for academic firms, just to cover the bills. I lived in cheap rentals, wore thrifted clothes, and skipped every indulgence. But I didn't mind. Ava grew stronger. She was bright, curious, and beautiful. I made every birthday special. I paid for private school with extra tutoring hours. When she got into college, I cried tears of joy and relief. I'd done it. I thought all the struggle was finally behind us. She met James during her 2nd year of university. He worked in a local tech startup, the kind of guy who wore smart glasses and talked about IPOs at dinner parties. He came from a polished family, the kind that subtly looked down on anyone who didn't own a country club membership. His mother, Elaine, was a well-known psychologist who never missed a chance to remind people of their place on her social ladder. When Ava told me she was getting married, I supported her fully. I even gifted them a home, a cozy 3-bedroom house in suburban Chicago. Paid in full, $400,000 from my life savings. I didn't think twice. "I want you two to start life without debt," I told them. James looked uncomfortable accepting it, but Ava insisted it was my decision. I didn't care if the house title didn't include my name. I never planned to use it against them. Years passed. I kept working. Quietly, steadily, I built a modest retirement plan, mostly from tutoring, part-time academic consulting, and a small inheritance from an aunt. But what changed my life wasn't something I earned. It was something I was given. Victoria Banks was one of my longtime clients. A widow in her 70s, she'd hired me to privately tutor her grandniece. Over the years, we became friends, something like family, really. She had no children of her own and treated me like a daughter. When she got sick, I stayed by her side. When she passed, I mourned deeply. What I didn't expect was the letter from her lawyer. She had left me $12 million in a trust. At first, I thought it was a mistake. But no, it was real. Her will was clear, her intentions sincere. She called me the most loyal person I've ever met. I didn't tell anyone, not even Ava. Around that time, I also lost my tutoring job. One of the schools I consulted with shut down unexpectedly. I wasn't devastated. I saw it as a sign. Maybe I could finally rest. I packed up, went to Ava's house, and told her and James that I had quit working and hoped to stay for a while, just to help around, especially since Ava was thinking about having a baby soon. But something about the way James's face changed unsettled me. He didn't ask if I was okay. He asked, "How do you plan to support yourself now?" Before I could even answer, Elaine cut in during dinner. "You're still healthy, aren't you? There's a retired doctor I know who needs help around his estate. You've worked for families before. Maybe it's time to get back to what you're good at." I didn't argue. I didn't even finish my food. I just smiled, excused myself, and quietly packed my things. They didn't want me as a mother anymore. They wanted a paycheck. A maid. A funding source. And so, I left their house with nothing but a suitcase and my silence. But this time, I wasn't going back to sleep on cheap mattresses or eat instant noodles just to scrape by. I was about to show them who they had underestimated. They thought I was broken, but they had no idea who they were turning away. I wasn't the same woman who had walked out of a marriage for a fragile child. Now, I was Scarlett Taylor, and the game had only just begun. After I left Ava and James's house, I didn't cry. Not even once. You'd think I'd be devastated. After all, I'd given them everything. But as I sat in that rideshare, my suitcase on the seat beside me, there was no sorrow left. Only clarity. It was like someone had finally wiped the fog off a mirror. I saw things for what they truly were. They never saw me as a mother. I was a convenience. A source. As long as I kept working and sacrificing, I had value. But the moment I stopped, I was dead weight. So I checked into a quiet hotel on the north side of Chicago, ordered a warm meal, and slept for 14 hours straight. The next morning, I made a list. I wasn't going to let rage run wild. I was going to be methodical. First, I contacted Victoria Banks's attorney and confirmed that my trust was still intact. It was. Every penny of that $12 million was sitting under my name. Safe. Secure. Then I began shopping. Not for clothes. For real estate. I'd passed by the luxury condos in Lincoln Park countless times during my tutoring years. I used to wonder what kind of lives people lived behind those high glass walls and flowered balconies. Now, I was going to find out. I made an appointment with a real estate agency. Their showroom was like walking into a magazine. Marble floors, chandeliers, espresso bar. I wore plain jeans and a sweater, nothing flashy. The receptionist gave me a once-over and hesitated before calling over a sales agent. A young man greeted me with an eager smile. "Welcome. I'm Adam. Would you like a tour of the model units?" Before I could answer, I heard that voice. Cold, cutting, too familiar. What is she doing here? I turned slowly. Standing near the entry desk was Cole, Elaine's nephew. Realtor of the year, arrogant as ever, and someone I'd met once during Ava's wedding. He stepped closer, smirking. "Did you take a wrong turn? This isn't a cleaning service agency." I smiled politely. "No mistake. I'm here to buy." He laughed. Loudly. "You? Buying? Please. You know these units start at $1.6 million, right?" He turned to Adam. "Trust me, she's just browsing for fun. Some people get a kick out of pretending." That's when I did it. I pulled out my phone, opened my banking app, and tilted the screen toward him. The number on display, $12.4 million. Adam gasped under his breath. A nearby couple glanced over, and a hush fell across the showroom. "Is that real?" someone whispered. I didn't say a word. Just looked Cole in the eye and raised a brow. He stumbled back a little, his grin fading. Adam, ever the professional, straightened up quickly. "Right this way, ma'am. Let me show you our most exclusive penthouse model." Within the hour, I signed for 2 units, one to live in, one as an investment. Paid in full. I made sure to request Adam's name go on the closing paperwork for commission. It was his first big sale. "Cole." He stood frozen, red-faced, trying to salvage his pride. But the real sting? When security escorted him out after he tried to call my money dirty, in front of the team. The agency had a strict conduct policy, and I made sure to file a complaint. Not just to humiliate him, but to make it official. Let people like him learn. Never underestimate quiet women. We build empires in silence. A week later, I moved into my condo. Polished floors. Sunlight in every room. I spent the next days walking the city again, for the first time in years without the weight of worry. But peace, as I learned, doesn't last long when you've hurt the pride of selfish people. That's when Ava struck back. She started a live stream series online. Called it My Cold Mother. She played the perfect victim. Sat in soft lighting, face bare, voice trembling as she told thousands of strangers how her mother abandoned her after striking it rich. "She didn't even offer to help with our baby," she said in one stream. "She cut me off. Said she was tired of working and just disappeared." Her followers? They ate it up. She wept on camera. Told them how hard her life was. Shared baby names. Claimed she'd been emotionally neglected for years. And worst of all, she started selling merch. Sweaters with abandoned but strong. Mugs that said "My pain is my power." It was like watching someone take my heart, crush it, and sell the pieces for profit. But I didn't react. Not right away. I watched, collected screenshots, recorded streams, let her dig her grave deeper. Every lie she told, every insult she slid into her sob stories. And then she went too far. In one stream, she hinted I had done questionable things to get my money. She said, "There's no way she made that honestly. She probably worked for someone wealthy, if you know what I mean." Insinuation, humiliation, defamation. That night, I sat at my piano bench, the one Victoria had gifted me years ago. I looked at her photo on my shelf and whispered, "It's time." I wasn't going to hide anymore. I launched my own channel. I called it The Truth About Ava. But I didn't start with anger. I started with receipts. I uploaded photos of the adoption certificate, medical bills from her childhood, tuition records, the $400,000 deed transfer for the house. Every single document dated, signed, stamped. Then, I uploaded a recording, one I had received from a source in the elderly doctor's household. It was James, Ava's husband, talking on the phone with Elaine, suggesting I go back to working for that old man so they could keep the house running. The audio was clear, cold, heartless. But I wasn't done. I leaned toward the camera and for the first time I spoke plainly. Ava isn't my biological child. She was abandoned as a baby in a hospital hallway. I took her in, raised her alone. And this, I gestured at the phone screen at her channel. This is how she thanks me. I ended the stream with one line. I don't want pity. I want justice. And oh, justice was already knocking. Because truth is louder than lies. And this time, I wasn't going to be quiet. I didn't expect the internet to react so quickly. Within 24 hours of my live stream, my channel had exploded. Views, shares, comments, thousands of people tuning in, not to judge but to listen. Most of them were shocked. Some apologized for ever supporting Ava's lies. Others were angry, not just at her, but at how easy it had become for people to manipulate sympathy online. I stayed calm. I wasn't trying to ruin Ava's life. I was trying to reclaim mine. But it wasn't long before the spotlight shifted. People went back to Ava's stream and flooded her chat with my receipts, my adoption papers, the audio clip of James and Elaine scheming. Her supporters started asking questions. Then came the insults. Then came silence. A few days later, Ava's channel was suspended. Not for my sake, but because she violated multiple policies with her false claims and defamation. That was satisfying, yes. But it wasn't over yet. I wasn't interested in online opinions. I wanted legal protection. So I worked with Victoria's lawyer, filed for defamation, and pushed for a restraining order. Every false statement, every mocking word, every attempt to ruin my name, I presented them all in court. And I won. She had to take down all her content, issue a public apology, and pay for damages. More importantly, she was barred from publicly speaking about me again. But just when I thought I could breathe again, the next blow came. It was James. He showed up at my condo's security gate one evening, pacing, clutching a bouquet of wilted roses. I saw the footage on my phone. The security guard asked him to leave, but he kept saying, "I just want to talk to my mother-in-law." Mother-in-law. Like he hadn't suggested I go work for an elderly man to free up their mortgage payments. The gate guard finally turned him away. But the next morning, the front desk called to tell me flowers had been left again. This time, I took the bouquet, walked it straight to the trash, snapped a photo of it, and sent it to the gatehouse with a simple message. Block this sender from future deliveries. Permanently. I thought they'd stop after that. But no. Now it was Ava. She began waiting outside the building, standing under the awning like some lost child in a storybook. Makeup smudged, voice trembling, begging to talk. Once, I stepped outside with my driver, and she dropped to her knees, clutching my arm. "Mom, please." I didn't mean for it to go this far. I was desperate. I didn't say a word. I pulled my arm away, got into the car, and shut the door. Ava kept it up for nearly 2 weeks. Rain or shine, she was there. I stopped going out the front entrance. Used the private garage, hired a driver full-time. Every time I saw her, I saw not the daughter I once held through surgeries, through night terrors, through first dates and graduation speeches. I saw someone who looked at me and saw nothing but opportunity. A vessel. A checkbook. A thing. And when her begging didn't work, she tried to destroy me again, but this time not alone. Somehow she'd gotten in touch with my ex-husband, Derek. Yes, the same man who forced me to choose between him and a dying baby 3 decades ago. I hadn't spoken to him in over 30 years. He called me one evening. I nearly didn't answer. Scarlett, he said, his voice aged but still cold. Just wanted to warn you. Ava came to see me. I blinked, unsure I'd heard him right. She what? Showed up at my office. Asked if I was really her biological father. When I told her I wasn't and that I hadn't raised her, she got hysterical. He paused. I told her straight, I wasn't her father. Never claimed to be. But I didn't tell her the full truth. I figured that was your place. I hung up, heart pounding. So Ava knew now. That she was adopted. That I wasn't her birth mother. I had never planned to hide it forever. I just wanted her to have a childhood without that label hanging over her head. I wanted her to grow up with confidence, not fear that she'd been unwanted. But now the truth wasn't setting her free, it was turning her vicious. I prepared myself for the next wave of attacks, but strangely none came. Instead, things went quiet. She disappeared from my gate. No more flowers. No calls. I should have been relieved. But silence is just the calm before the storm. And I was right. A few days later, the concierge called again. This time not about flowers. It was about online videos. Apparently, someone in the neighborhood had recognized me. I was going viral again. But not because of anything I said. Ava had started a new anonymous account, this time not under her name. She uploaded old pictures of me in plain clothes, working in families' homes, tutoring, cleaning, cooking, and added audio clips that twisted my words. She called the video "The Fake Heiress Who Abandoned Her Family." Claimed I'd lied about the inheritance, that I scammed Victoria Banks out of her fortune, that I manipulated Ava into believing we were family just to use her for sympathy. This time it was slander of another level. She even hinted that I had a history of inappropriate relationships with older clients. That's when I realized she wasn't just trying to hurt me. She wanted to destroy me. But she underestimated two things, my patience and my preparation. By then, I had already collected evidence of her fake account through digital forensics. Emails, IP logs, everything. I forwarded it all to my attorney. And I decided I wasn't going to wait for the court this time. I went live again. Not just to defend myself, but to bury every lie with truth. I titled my stream, "Let Me Speak Clearly." I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I simply told the story of Ava's life beginning to end. The night I found her in the hospital. The birthdays I worked triple shifts to afford. The house. The surgeries. The love. The betrayal. Then I turned to the camera and said, if loving her was my mistake, then it's one I'll live with. But letting her hurt me again? That ends now. I ended the stream with a new document, an injunction order, signed by a judge. Ava couldn't speak about me in public again. And if she did, she'd face jail time. Now I waited. Not for revenge, but for the peace I had earned. It's strange how quiet life becomes after a storm. For the first time in over 3 decades, I no longer had to defend myself, work for anyone, or justify my place in the world. My name was cleared, my dignity intact, and the people who tried to break me had finally gone silent. But that silence wasn't peace, not right away. It felt like standing in a house after a fire. The flames are gone, but the smoke lingers. After the court ruling, Ava vanished. Not a word. Not a letter. Not even a whisper on the internet. Her accounts were taken down. Her merchandise line collapsed. Her so-called fans turned on her. Even James, her loyal husband, filed for divorce. I found out through his lawyer's office. They needed me to sign some documents to transfer the house officially back into my name. They had defaulted on payments, and technically I still held the deed. I went back to that house one last time. Walked through the empty rooms I once furnished with love. I stared at the kitchen I had scrubbed clean, the nursery I had offered to help decorate. There was nothing left of me in that place. Just walls and shadows. So I sold it. Quietly. Took the profit, and closed the chapter for good. I left Chicago soon after. I bought a modest lakeside home in Minnesota, far from the noise, the gossip, the eyes. I didn't want grandeur anymore. I wanted sunlight. I wanted mornings without stress. Evenings without drama. A garden. A kitchen that smelled like roasted coffee. A life that was finally mine. Sometimes I'd paint, just like Victoria taught me. Other times, I'd teach music to kids in the community center. Simple lessons, nothing formal. Just enough to keep my soul warm. And when people asked about my past, I'd smile gently and say, it's long and loud. But the silence now is sweet. A few years passed like that. Peacefully. Then one day, I was sipping coffee at a small cafe in town when an old friend visiting from Chicago sat down beside me. She was catching up, chatting about mutual acquaintances, when her voice dropped. I saw Ava, she said. Online. A video from Seattle. I looked up slowly. Seattle? She nodded. She's not well. She's homeless. Wandering the streets. Someone recorded her digging through trash. She looked lost. Like she wasn't even in her own body. I didn't ask for the video. I didn't need to see it. Just the image in my mind was enough. I didn't feel triumph. Or satisfaction. I felt nothing. Not because I didn't care. But because I'd cared too long. And caring had nearly destroyed me. People still ask me now and then if I regret it, adopting Ava. Giving up my marriage, my youth, my security for a child who turned on me the moment the money stopped flowing. But I don't regret her. I regret not knowing the difference between love and self-erasure. I regret believing that sacrificing everything would guarantee loyalty. It doesn't. Love without boundaries is just fuel for someone else's fire. But I learned that kindness must never come at the cost of your soul. I learned that silence is not always noble. And that truth, even when it shakes the earth beneath you, is worth telling. And now, when I sit on my porch, watching the water ripple against the shore, I don't feel anger anymore. I feel whole. Because after a lifetime of being someone's mother, caregiver, servant, savior, I am finally something far greater. I am Scarlett Taylor. And I belong to no one but myself.